Hey, welcome into Morning Scone. Going YouTube live here because I've already recorded this twice and it's failed to upload, so I'm just going live. I was going to record this video last night and decided, you know what, let me sleep on it so as not to put anything up there that was just overly and ridiculously emotional. But I woke up today and I feel basically the exact same way I did last night about the LSU baseball loss. Let me not, however, soil the beauty of the Pelicans' win last night by beginning with LSU's loss. Pelicans were awesome. I'm going to start there. It, on their home floor, trying to avoid a 3-0 hold, they blew out the defending champs by 19, and it really wasn't that close. And one of the things that New Orleans showed last night that LSU didn't is the ability to finish. And it's an intangible thing that some guys have, some teams have, and some don't. And New Orleans had it last night, and it was awesome to see. I kept waiting on Golden State to make that run. I even texted a buddy, late in the third. I was like, man, there's no way they can rally from 20 down again. It happened in the playoffs in 2015. And you kind of knew that Golden State is always capable of doing that. But Durant hits the three with 2 minutes to go, or 2 seconds to go in the third, and then they get a bucket to open the fourth, and all of a sudden it's 15, and you're going, here it comes. Like, here comes the rally. And New Orleans just pushed back. And maybe last night was that sort of confluence of circumstances we've talked about, where AD was a monster, 33 and 18, and Golden State just didn't shoot well collectively as a team. Golden State was the Pelicans shot 50% from the floor. Golden State 38%. Pelicans were 45% from three. Golden State 29%. The Pelicans bench outscored the Warriors bench. Steph Curry had an uncharacteristic bad shooting night. He was just 6 of 19, 19 points. Durant had 22. Klay Thompson had 26, had like a 20-point second quarter, which even kept him in at half. Cutting grass outside. Sorry if you hear that. But New Orleans was better. Drew Holiday had 20. Hang on, I think he had 20. Drew Holiday, I think, had 21 points. Drew had 21. Rondo had 21 assists. That was one less than the entire Warriors team. Point is, Solomon Hill was 3 of 6 from three. When the Pelicans were building their lead in the first quarter, Solomon Hill was hitting threes. Ian Clark had 18 points off the bench. I mean, it was one of those games where the crowd was into it. Pels were desperate. AD was a beast. Warriors didn't shoot well. They were shell shocked, and they just couldn't overcome it. And it was phenomenal to see that sort of killer instinct that the Pelicans had last night to finish that game and avoid the 0-3 hole. Now, what's going to happen, and I'm going to get to LSU baseball in a minute, but Sunday is going to be lit, and your boy is going to be there on the floor Sunday for Game 4, and I'm excited about it, man. I got lucked in. A buddy of mine invited me to go. I've sat one time in my life on the floor at an NBA game, and it's the greatest live experience that you could have at a sporting event. And for a playoff game, the most meaningful playoff game in the city in 10 years, it's going to be so awesome, man. I'm looking forward to it. I'm proud of the team, man. I'm proud of the Pelicans. Maybe it's just the one that they were going to get, or maybe it's a sign of something that this team has figured out against Golden State. There's a really good chance Sunday Golden State comes out and they shoot 50% from three and run New Orleans out the building. I mean, that certainly could happen. Or maybe New Orleans has figured it out defensively, how to match up against this team. Adjustments are always key, but if nothing else, the series now is going back to Oakland, and that's a really cool thing. The Pels were able to get a win in the series and to finish a game that they led. The flip side of this conversation is what happened to LSU baseball last night. And I was so fired up. At one point last night, you're in the fourth quarter, and the Pelicans are winning by 20, and LSU baseball is up 4-2 through 7, and you're like, man, 6 more outs, and you beat Blaine Knight, a future first-round draft pick, when your season's absolutely on the line, a top 5 win. I mean, you're right there at the finish line, and LSU couldn't finish. And at this point, it's what this team is. They have talent. I'll rebuff that argument that they don't have talent. I mean, Zach Hess is a talented pitcher. Daniel Cabrera passed on $1 million to come to LSU. Watson and Duplantis are guys that are going to have a chance to play professional baseball. I mean, we can talk about injuries, and we can talk about any of the other circumstances that you want to talk about. But the fact of the matter is, this is a team that time and again has been on the cusp of big time wins, and they can't finish. I mean, you led in the eighth inning on the road at South Carolina, and you blew it. You led Sunday at Ole Miss in the eighth inning, and you blew it. You led last night in your building, needing 6 outs to claim a huge win, and you blew it. And you could point to a lot of things. And you might hear my son over there. I'm sorry if you do. But this team just does not know how to finish. And I don't like talking so much about intangibles because you can't measure an intangible. It's not something quantifiable. But it's what's wrong with this team. I'll talk specifically about the game last night here in a second because there's a couple of situations that irked me. But I remember talking about 2011, the last time LSU missed postseason play. And the narrative on that team became the one-run games. And they lost something like 9 one-run conference games. They finished with 13 SEC wins. A bot named Scooby-Doo. Yes, I talked Pels to begin. So when I publish it, go back and watch. Thank you. 2011 team lost like 9 one-run games. They finished 13-17 in the conference. I mean, those one-run games. You win half of them, you're a national seed. But they didn't, and it wasn't that they had a lack of talent. I mean, look at this LSU team. Look how close the margin is. I mean, you're leading, needing 6 outs to win at South Carolina, on the road at Ole Miss, top 5 team. Last night at home against Arkansas, top 5 team. I mean, that's how thin the margin is right now from this team being in the national seed conversation and being out of regionals, and it's just the intangible of being able to finish, and this team doesn't have it. And maybe they figure something out, and I hope they do, and they can flip a switch. But we've been waiting on that all season, and it just hasn't come. And with the desperation they needed last night to not come through was so disappointing. And a couple of things last night. I mean, Blaine Knight's gonna be a first-round draft pick, and you chased him after 6 innings. I was hoping today that I'd be talking about Daniel Cabrera's 13-pitch at-bat in the first inning. If you missed it, solo homer for Arkansas to lead off the game. They're up 1-0. LSU, Bo Jordan leads off the game with a single. LSU gets another single. You got runners at the corners. You got 1 out. Cabrera's up. Man, and he's battling. He's battling Knight. And look, if he rolls over into a double play and Knight gets out of it, it's crushing. It's deflating. But Cabrera keeps battling. He must have fouled off 11 pitches in the at-bat. And eventually, Knight left one a little too center cut, and Cabrera blasts it to center, and it's a warning track out, but it gets the run home, and Cabrera won that match. And so you're thinking, man, this team, it's like they're delivering when they need to. They come up and they Fiducia later gets a 2-out RBI. LSU's up 4-2, and you can feel it. Hess was awesome, man. Hess had the bases loaded with 1 out in the 6th, and he gets the big strikeout, then they get the put out, and he gets out of it. The place is going nuts, and you're feeling like, man, this is it. This was the game they needed. This was their turning point. And they bring Hess back out for the 8th, and he gives up a solo homer to lead off, and it's 4-3. He gives up a single. Maneri hooks him, which was absolutely the right decision, to bring in Bush, who's the guy he trusts. And Bush couldn't hold it. But even still, you go into the 9th, and this is something all season long that's just frustrated the hell out of me with this team. You go into the 9th, and you get a leadoff walk. And the guy, is it Losecki? I think it was Losecki was pitching. It doesn't matter. You get a leadoff walk. I believe it was Fiducia. Great. Up next is Jake Slaughter, who Maneri has at third base because he wants his bat in the lineup. He's in there for his bat. And they bunt. A guy that just issued a walk, was having trouble throwing strikes, has been on the mound now for 2 innings of work. Trouble throwing strikes, and you give him an out. Look, I'll go on this rant from time to time about bunting. For me, percentage-wise, I just cannot understand bunting. And some people have said, hey, you're trying to avoid the double play. That is a losing mentality. Because percentage-wise, percentage-wise has a greater chance of happening? A single. a double, a triple, a homer, which Slaughter gives you that. Maybe, and with the home, maybe you walk off win right there. Or maybe you go sit there with the bat on your shoulders and he does to you exactly what he did to the previous batter, which is throw four balls and gives you a base. But they bunt Slaughter, they give up an out, and then what happens? Coombs comes up as a pinch hitter, and Coombs walks in. Oh, by the way, there's a wild pitch, and now you got runners at the corners, but you've gifted them an out. So at that point, they went and got Riedel. And Matt Cronin, their closer, is out with mono. He couldn't pitch last night. And so now they bring in Nick Webb as a pinch hitter, 3-pitch strikeout, swinging for the moon. Here comes Bo Jordan, 3-pitch strikeout, swinging for the moon. No patience against a bullpen that was struggling to throw strikes and the inability to put pressure on a team in a key situation. And that's so unfortunate. And I just cannot for the life of me understand giving them an out, giving a pitcher an out when he's struggling to throw strikes. And so that's deflating. It's devastating. Look, maybe today, Mikhail Hilliard goes out and is awesome. Maybe Mikhail Hilliard goes out today and, maybe Mikhail Hilliard goes out today and throws a beautiful game and LSU gets a win and, Rally Possum runs onto the field again or some crap and they want to win tomorrow and whatever it might be. And then you go to Alabama or you go next weekend, you got Alabama coming to your place and you win a series against the worst team in the conference. Maybe that happens. At this point, I wouldn't bank on it because this team's just shown an inability to finish. And I hope they can, but at this point where you have 8 conference games left, it feels like you are what you are. And maybe they can flip a switch. I just wouldn't count on it because even if they were to get to 15 conference wins and get into regional play and they're traveling, you just get the feeling that this is how it's going to end for them. Hess throws a beautiful, let's say they're at a regional, they're in the marble game and Hess throws a beautiful performance and you hand it over to the bullpen, you got a 2-run lead, you just feel like this is the end that they're going to face eventually because they just don't know how to finish these types of games. So it's unfortunate, man. Last night was such a bummer because it was a great opportunity, but it was the same thing at Ole Miss and it was the same thing at South Carolina the week before, and they just haven't been able to finish. Or you can even go back to the 1-run loss at Vanderbilt. And it feels like the narrative on this team is shaping up the same way the 2011 season did, where they lost like 9 one-run games in conference, and that was the difference between being a national seed and being left home. And of course, the following year, they were a national seeds year. They lost to Stony Brook, but there's a lot of pieces there. There's a lot of talent. This team just hasn't figured out how to win, that will to win, that intangible, whatever it is. When you're LSU and you go out on the field, and you feel like no matter what, you're going to find a way to prevail in the 9th inning, and this team just doesn't have it. So it's unfortunate. But the great news is the Pels get the big win last night. I know a lot of you have just jumped on here. I'll see if I can read some of these comments. Bullpen was strong at one point. What's been the issue? What's the last pitch? I felt your outrage of Florida. What's been the issue with the bullpen? I just don't think you have guys. Alden Cartwright talked about this on the show this week. He's like, you just don't have guys that want the ball, and you're pitching with a 2-run lead in the 8th or a 1-run lead in the 8th is a mentality, or trying to hold the rope. It's like you've got to go execute pitches. It's not that they don't have the ability. It's not that Matt Beck's whole MO was he was a strike thrower, and now he can't throw strikes. The walk against Tulane, damaged his psyche. Someone just mentioned the injuries. I talked about that a little bit earlier, and I mean, injuries happen to every team, and you can blame it, you can use it as an excuse, but in spite of the injuries, you were still right there to win a game last night against a top 5 team. You were right there to win a game on the road last week against Ole Miss, a top 5 team, and you can't finish. That's not an injury thing. That's just what you are at this point. So, all right, y'all, I'm going to sign off. Y'all have a great Saturday. Appreciate you for tuning in here to a live edition of Morning Scone. Again, if you missed the very beginning, I'd highly recommend you go back and watch it. We talked Pels first and then LSU. And we will check in with you tomorrow morning. Y'all have a good one.